And I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 6 English lesson on subject-verb agreement. And before we start with our lesson on subject-verb agreement, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. And once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject. We're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 6. And then once we've selected the subject of language arts, grade 6, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of subject-verb agreement. All right, so our chapter is subject-verb subject-verb agreement. Our subject is English, which is language arts, grade 6. And the lessons that we are focusing on under the chapter of subject-verb agreement is to use the correct subject or verb. So we're basically going to find out what is a subject, what is a verb. And we're going to use the correct verb with the compound subjects. All right. So when it comes to subject-verb agreements, right? Subject-verb agreement. The subject and the verb within a sentence, they must agree. And that is why we say it is subject-verb agreement. So the subject as well as the verb within a sentence, they must agree, right? We are going to go on the first lesson. Yes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give like a breakdown of it with an example, and then we're going to the first lesson. Yes. All right, so the subject as well as the verb within a sentence, they must agree. So we have singular subjects as well as plural subjects, right? And a singular subject, it names only one person, animal, place, or thing. And when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb, right? So when a subject is singular, meaning that we only name one person, animal, place, or thing, then it means that our verb also needs to be singular, right? And singular verbs, right? They either end in s, they end in s, es, or they end in ies, depending on the specific word. For example, Sarah, which is one person, right? Sarah visits, and it ends with an S. She visits her grandmother. So we don't say Sarah visits a grandmother, right? Our singular verb, it needs to either end in S, ES, or IES. So Sarah visits her grandmother, right? So instead of just saying visit, we added the S to our verb. If we look at another sentence, my cat, right, which is singular, it's naming one animal. My cat washes her paws. So we don't say my cat wash her paws, right? Here we are adding the ES at the end. So my cat washes her paws, right? So basically, our subject as well as our verb, it is in agreement, right? Our singular subject, which either names one person, animal, place, or thing, right? It uses a singular verb. And over here, it shows that our singular verb ends either in S, ES, or it ends in IES. Then we have plural subjects, right? And a plural subject, it names more than one person, animal, place, or thing, right? And when a subject is plural, right, when it's referring to more than one person, animal, or thing, then it means that we need to use a plural verb, right? And that is how it shows that it must be in agreement. And a plural verb, it usually do not end in S, ES, or IAS. It does not end in one of those. A singular verb ends in S, ES, or IAS, not a plural verb. So a plural verb, it usually do not end in S, ES, or IAS. And if we look at the sentences, it says Kylie and Jesse, which is plural because it's more than one person. So Kylie and Jesse, they walk home. So walk, as you can see, it is not ending in S, ES, or IS. It is just walk home, right? No S. The flowers, right? It's referring to more than one thing. They grow in the garden, not it grows in the garden. The flowers, which is more than one flower, grow in the garden, right? So which means that we have singular subjects and we have plural subjects. And a singular subject, it names one person, animal, place, or thing, whereas a plural subject, it names more than one person, animal, place, or thing. Right? A singular subject, right, needs to use a singular verb. And a plural subject needs to use a plural verb. Singular subjects, right, or singular verbs, they end in S, ES, or IES, whereas a plural verb do not end in S, ES, or IES. And we made few examples of both singular subjects as well as plural subjects. But when it comes to both singular subject as well as plural subjects, the subject and the verb in a sentence, it must agree, right? It must agree with one another. All right. Do we understand? Or do you want me to explain again? And we are doing our tutorial lesson on a+students.ca, right? And we say that our two lessons for today is to use the correct subject or verb, as well as to use the correct verb with the compound subjects. All right, so let's go to a+students.ca, and then we're going to our first lesson where we are going to use the correct subject or verb. All right, so once again, we see that the subject as well as the verb in a sentence, they must agree with one another. And that is why our chapter is subject-verb agreement, right? Which gives us the indication that the subject as well as the verb needs to agree, right? And we made mention of singular subjects as well as plural subjects. Singular subjects naming only one person, animal, place, or thing, whereas a plural subject names more than one person, animal, place, or thing. And when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb, and when a subject is plural, we use a plural verb. And singular verbs, they end in s, es, or ies, whereas plural verbs do not end in s, es, or ies, right? So if we look at a few, we're going to look at a few sentences, or let's say activities that we're going to do where we are going to complete the sentence with the best verb, right? And remember, you're going to have to try and identify if a subject is singular or if a subject is plural in order for you to complete the sentence with the base verb, right? Because remember, the subject as well as the verb needs to agree. If it's a singular subject, we need to have a singular verb that ends in s, es, or ies. And if it's a plural subject, right, then it needs to use a plural verb where it does not end in s, es, or ies. All right. So we need to complete the sentence now with the best verb. Did you know that the store on the corner magazines in 6 languages? It sounds. So did you know that the store on the corner, we either need to choose the difference between carry or carries. You need to choose the difference between these two, right? So did you know that the store, referring to one place, right on the corner, do we say carry or do we say carries magazines in 6 languages? Keeping in mind, we are referring to one place, singular, right? So which means that we need to specifically have a singular verb that ends either in s, es, or ies. All right, so if we look at the correct verb or the best verb, then we are going to say, let me use a different color. We're going to choose carries, right? We're going to use carries because it is a singular subject, which means that we need to have a singular verb that ends in IES, right? Because remember we said a singular subject has a singular verb or uses a singular verb that ends in S, ES, or IES. All right, so carries is correct. Let's go to another example, another activity or example. Every year, right? I mean, look. Every year, it says Cousin Tilda encouraged me to spend the summer in Alaska. So every year, Cousin Tilda encouraged me to spend the summer in Alaska. So here they're saying Cousin Tilda. So it's basically Cousin Tilda encouraging them to spend the Christmas, right? Or encourages me to spend the summer in Alaska. So that is every year where Cousin Tilda encourages me to spend the Christmas. So which means that it is not just encourage, right? Because if Cousin Tilda is the one that wants you to be there, Cousin Tilda is singular because it's one person. So if we look at this word, right? Every year, Cousin Tilda encouraged me to spend the summer in Alaska, right? Remember, we said that with a singular subject comes a singular verb, right? Which ends in S, ES, or IES. So in this case, we need to say Cousin Tilda encourages me to spend the summer in Alaska. So encourages with an S. Well done. Yes, encourages is correct because we have a singular subject, so which means that we need to use a singular verb that either ends in S, ES, or IES. And encourages is correct. Well done. So it says here, we need to complete the sentence with the base subject, right? And the subject that is given to us is both of us. So if we say both of us, right, is that singular, a singular subject, or is it a plural subject? So both of us play the banjo, but Layla also plays the flute. Are we referring to, like, yeah, both of us? Is this a singular subject or is this a plural subject? Both of us. Are we referring to one person or more than one person? So both basically both of us, it means that we are specifically looking at a, this is a plural subject, right? So this is a plural subject. So with it being a plural subject, it means that play is correct. Because we said a plural subject has or it uses a plural verb, which means that I do not have, or we do not add an s, es, or ies to our verb. All right, so now let's go to our test where we are going to use the correct subject or verb, right? And remember, when we are doing the tests, right? Within these lessons, we are just doing a few of the tests, right? So probably like about 3 or 4 of the tests. But then once the lesson has ended, you're going to have to complete the rest of the test on your own. All right, so now we're going to complete the sentence with the best subject. So you're going to have to specifically look at this word, let's say the verb, right? So we're going to look at the verb in order for us to find the best subject. So do we say the 3 clerks apologizes to any customers waiting in a long line? Or the shop owner apologizes to any customer waiting in a long line? So which one is the best subject? The 3 clerks apologizes with an S, or the shop owner apologizes to any customer waiting in a long line? So which one is the correct one? First one or the second one? The first one, which is plural, or the second one, which is singular? All right, so basically, if we look at the word apologizes, right, that ends with an S, that means that this is a singular verb, right? So which means that we need to be in agreement with a singular subject. So we're going to choose the shop owner encourages to any customer waiting in a long line. Remember, a singular subject, we need to use a singular verb that ends with s, es, or ies. Right? So the shop owner is the correct one. The cactus, right, which is one cactus. Do we say grows taller and taller, reaching toward the sky? Or the cactus grow taller and taller, reaching towards the sky? So the cactus is singular, right? Do we say the cactus grows or grow taller and taller, reaching towards the sky? All right, so if we choose the correct or the best verb, since the cactus, right, is a singular subject, right, we are going to use a singular verb, which is grows taller and taller, reaching towards the sky. Because we said that with a singular subject, we use a singular verb that ends with S, ES, or IES. So grows is the correct one. We're going to complete the sentence with the best subject, right? As we watch, do we say the children marches into the kitchen and straight to the cookie tin? Or the child marches into the kitchen and straight to the cookie tin? So which one is the correct subject or the best subject? Look at the word marches, which is our verb, ending with an ES. So do we choose the children, which is more than one, which is plural, or do we choose the child, which is singular? All right, so if we choose the best subject, right, if we look at the word marches that ends with ES, which is the verb, right, then we're going to say the child, which is a singular subject. So since we use a singular verb, we're using a singular subject, right? So the child marches into the kitchen and straight to the cookie jar. So now we're going to complete the sentence with the base verb. The girl in the front row. So the girl in the front row, do we say blush at the invitation to come on stage or blushes at the invitation to come on stage? So the girl, which is singular. So the girl in the front row, do we say she blush at the invitation to come on stage or she blushes at the invitation to come on stage? And remember, we said that the subject needs to agree with the verb, or the subject and the verb, they need to agree with one another within a sentence. And when we use a singular subject, we use a singular verb, right? That ends in S, ES, or IES. And if we use a plural subject, then we need to use a plural verb, right? And that verb does not end with an S, ES, or IES. And in this case, the girl is a singular subject, which means that we are going to use a singular verb that ends with ES. So the girl in the front row blushes at the invitation to come on stage. All right, we're going to do one more. we need to select the or complete the sentence with the best verb. During the game, the children, which is plural, do we say the children hide behind the thick velvet curtains while I count to 10, or the children hides behind the thick velvet curtains while I count to 10? All right, so the children, which is a plural subject, right? We need to then choose a plural verb, which is the children hide behind the thick velvet curtains while I count to 10. So this is where the subject and the verb, they agree with one another within a sentence. And remember, we said that if you have a singular subject, then you need to use a singular verb that ends with s, es, or ies. And when you use a plural subject, you use a plural verb that does not end with s, es, or ies. All right, so now we're going to use the correct verb with a compound subject, right? And a compound subject, it is made up of two subjects that is joined by a conjunction, right? Compound subject, it's made up of two subjects that is joined by conjunction, which is and, or no, right? For example, Mark and Amanda, right? So we have two subjects, which is Mark, and we have Amanda, right? Which is our two subjects. And the word and, it is joining those two subjects. So it joins that two subjects, which is Mark and Amanda. We have a subject this week or next, right? Or is our conjunction that joins these two subjects, which is this week or next. Neither Josh nor my friends, right? So as you can see, these are compound subjects where it is made up of two subjects. There's Mark, there's Amanda, there's this week, there's next, there's either Josh, there is my friends, right? And if you look at the word that is in bold that joins these two subjects, right? Then you either join them with the word and, or no. And when a compound subject is joined by and, so when a compound subject is joined by and, like for example, Mark and Amanda, then we need to use a plural verb, right? So if we, for example, say Mark and Amanda, then it means that we need to use a plural verb. And remember, we said that when you use a plural verb, we do not add es, we do not add s, and we do not add ies. So we do not add s, es, or ies. For example, where do Mark and Amanda go to school? Not where does Mark and Amanda go to school. Where do Mark and Amanda go to school, right? Because it is a plural verb, because here we have a plural subject. Plural subject, which is Mark and Amanda. It's basically saying it is one and it's the other. So it's one and two, for example. So which means that this is a plural subject. So which means that we have a plural verb. And when a compound subject is joined by or nor, then we use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. Right? So if the verb is, so we need to use a verb that agrees with the subject that is closest to the verb. So if the subject is singular, then we need to go with the singular verb. If the subject is plural, then we go with a plural verb. So if the subject closest to the verb is singular, like I said, then we use a singular verb. And singular verbs end in s, es, or ies. So for example, we're going to say this week or next seems likely to be hectic. So this week or next seems, then is likely to be hectic. So which means that this is a singular verb, right? Because remember, it's not like we're saying it's this week and next week, right? We either saying it is either this week or it's either next week, right? Which means that that is closest to it being a singular subject. So we say seems because we add the ses or ies, likely to be hectic. So which means that the subject that is closest to the verb is also plural. So use a plural verb. Again, plural verbs usually do not end in s, es, or ies. Right? So we say that if the subject is closest to the verb that is plural, we use a plural verb. And again, plural verbs, they do not end in s, es, or ies. For example, after reading the reviews, neither Josh nor my friends expect the movie to be successful, right? And the reason why this is a plural subject, right? It's because they're either saying it is neither Josh, which is one person, nor my friends, right? Which means that you're referring to Josh as well as you're referring to your friends, right? They expect, which means that this is a plural verb, the movie to be successful. Right? All right, so now let's go to our test. So we're going to go to our test where we are going to use the correct verb with the compound subjects. And remember, whatever we don't finish together, you are going to complete the rest of the test on your own. All right, so we're going to complete the sentence with the best verb. The photograph and story in today's paper perfectly, do we say captures or capture the spirit of our town? Remember, photograph and story. Photograph and story in today's paper perfectly, do we say captures the spirit of our town or capture the spirit of our town? So we need to choose the correct verb that agrees with our compound subject. And a compound subject is joined by the conjunction, which is and. All right, so we see that when we have a subject that is joined with the conjunction and then that is basically it's adding. It's like saying it's more than one, because they saying it's the photograph as well as and the story, which means that it is more than one. So it's plural. So which means that we need to use a plural verb. And we see the plural verb does not end in s, es, or ies. So it's capture is the correct one. Now we need to complete the sentence with the best verb. Depending on which of my relatives you ask, either Aunt Mia or Uncle Brad, so it's either one of them, do we say bake the best rhubarb pie or bakes the best rhubarb pie? We need to choose the correct one. All right, so if we choose the correct one, remember it's not that they said Auntie Mia and Uncle Brad. It's either Auntie Mia on her own or Uncle Brad on his own. So we say bakes the best rhubarb pie. Right? So bakes is our correct singular verb. And when we stay at Mr. Farrell's farm, either the roosters or the pigs, do we say wake up early in the morning or wakes up early in the morning? Because it's roosters or pigs, referring to it being a plural subject. So with us having a plural subject, remember our plural verb needs to be in agreement. And if we have a plural subject, that means that our plural verb is not going to end in s, es, or ies. So we're going to say, when we sat Mr. Farrell's farm, either the roosters or the pigs wake up early in the morning. And wake up early is correct. Let's do one more. According to Tisha, either a slice of key lime pie or lemon bars make the perfect tart dessert or makes the perfect tart dessert. So it's either a slice of key lemon pie or lemon bars. Do we say make the perfect tart dessert or makes the perfect tart dessert? And if you look at the word either or, it's a mix the perfect. Oh, it's make because of the word lemon bars, which is more than one, right? All right. All right, so that is now the end of our chapter on subject-verb agreement, right? And we see that our subject as well as our verb needs to agree. So which means that if you have a singular subject, And it means that we need to use a singular verb that ends in s, es, or ies. And if we have a plural subject, then we need to use a plural verb, which does not or do not end with es, or ies, right? All right, grade sixes, this is now the end of our lesson on subject verb agreement. Thank you very much for joining the class and for interacting. And I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.